I was 28 when I decided to hike the Piney Ridge Trail alone. It was October, just cold enough to sting your cheeks, but not cold enough to keep people away. Except there was no one else. Not on the trail, not at the overlook, just me and the trees. If you're camping in Appalachia right now, drop a comment and let me know where. I want to know who's out there listening. I'd been wanting to do Piney Ridge for years. It's one of those trails that doesn't show up on the popular hiking apps. You hear about it from locals or old forum posts, the kind where someone says, "Best kept secret in the Smokies," and leaves it at that. The trailhead was unmarked, just a pull-off on Route 421 with enough room for 2 cars. I parked, laced up my boots, and started in. The first few miles were gentle, hardwoods mostly, oak and poplar, with patches of laurel thick enough to block the sun. The air smelled like wet leaves and cold stone. My pack felt good on my shoulders. My legs felt strong. I was in that groove where your body just moves and your mind drifts. Around mile 4, I passed a campsite, or what used to be one. There was a fire ring made of stacked stones, blackened on the inside. A few logs arranged like benches. No trash, no tent marks. Just the ring and the logs. It looked old. Not abandoned last week old. Abandoned years ago old. I stopped to take a drink and noticed something. The stones in the fire ring weren't random. They were all the same size, smooth. River stones, probably. But we were nowhere near water. I crouched down and counted them. 12 stones, perfectly spaced. I stood up and kept walking. By late afternoon, I reached the spot I'd planned to camp. A small clearing on the east side of the ridge with a view that stretched for miles. The sun was already low, painting everything orange and purple. I set up my tent, gathered some wood, and got a fire going before the light faded completely. Dinner was ramen with a packet of tuna mixed in. I ate it straight from the pot, watching the stars come out one by one. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for something. Around 10, I crawled into my sleeping bag and zipped the tent shut. I wasn't tired yet, just cold. I lay there scrolling through old photos on my phone, killing time. That's when I heard it. A soft tapping sound, like someone knocking 2 stones together. Tap, tap, pause, tap. I turned off my phone and listened. It came from somewhere downhill, maybe 50 yards out. Not close, but close enough to hear clearly. I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The fire had burned down to coals. Everything was shadows and starlight. The tapping stopped. I stood there for a full minute, breath fogging in front of me, listening. Nothing. I went back inside and zipped the tent. My hands were shaking a little, not from fear, just adrenaline, the kind your body makes when it thinks something's wrong but doesn't know what. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I started to drift, I'd hear something. A branch snapping, snow crunching. Once I thought I heard footsteps circling the tent, slow, deliberate. But when I looked out, there was nothing. Morning came gray and cold. I made instant coffee and ate a granola bar, standing by the dead fire. My tent was covered in frost, so was everything else. I packed up fast. I wanted to get moving, get warm. But before I left, I walked back to that old campsite I'd passed the day before. I don't know why. I just felt like I needed to see it again. When I got there, I stopped. The fire ring was different. The stones were still there, still 12 of them. But now they were arranged in a line, not a circle, a line, perfectly straight, leading into the woods. I stared at it for a long time. No one had passed me on the trail. I was sure of it. And there were no fresh footprints in the frost. I followed the line. It led maybe 20 feet into the trees and stopped at a pile of stones. Not stacked, just piled. And on top of the pile was a piece of cloth, faded red, torn at the edges. It looked like it had been there a long time, I didn't touch it. I just turned and walked back to the trail. Fast. I hiked out in under 3 hours. Didn't stop once. When I got home, I looked up Piney Ridge online, found an old article from 2004 in a local paper. A hiker had gone missing on that trail. They found his campsite still set up. Fire ring made of river stones, 12 of them. They never found him. I still go camping, but I don't stop at unmarked campsites anymore. And if I see stones arranged in a way that doesn't make sense, I keep walking. Some things are left that way for a reason. My brother Kyle convinced me to go winter camping in February of 2019. I didn't want to. I hate the cold. But he'd just gotten laid off and needed to get out of his apartment, so I said yes. Comment below if you've ever camped in winter. Let me know what kept you up at night. We drove up to the Blue Ridge on a Thursday morning. The forecast said clear skies, low 20s at night. Cold but manageable. Kyle had done this before. I trusted him. We parked at a trailhead off Forest Road 83 near the Virginia border. The lot was empty except for one other truck. Old, rusted. Looked like it hadn't moved in weeks. Kyle didn't mention it. Neither did I. The hike in was about 5 miles. The trail followed a creek for the first half, then climbed steeply through rhododendron thickets so dense you couldn't see more than a few feet on either side. By the time we reached the ridge, the sun was already dipping. We found a flat spot near a cluster of hemlocks and set up camp. 2 tents, 1 small fire ring, a view of the valley below. Dinner was freeze-dried chili. Kyle ate his in 4 bites and tossed the pouch into his pack. I ate mine slowly, watching the last light drain from the sky. The temperature dropped fast. By 8, my breath hung in the air like smoke. Kyle went to bed early, said he was tired. I stayed by the fire a little longer, feeding it sticks and listening to the wood pop. That's when I heard the whistle. It was faint. Just 1 long note, high-pitched, like someone calling a dog. I looked toward the sound, nothing but trees and darkness. A few seconds later, it came again. Same note, same direction. I stood up and walked to the edge of camp. The fire cast just enough light to see the first few trunks. Beyond that, everything was black. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I waited another minute, then went back to the fire. Probably just wind, I told myself. Or an animal. But it didn't sound like wind, and it didn't sound like an animal. I crawled into my tent around 9. Kyle was already snoring in his. I zipped my bag up to my chin and lay there, eyes open, listening. Around midnight, the fog rolled in. I didn't see it at first, I just felt it. The air got heavier, wetter. The kind of fog that clings to your skin and makes everything feel closer. I unzipped my tent and looked outside. The fog was thick, so thick I couldn't see Kyle's tent, couldn't see the fire ring, couldn't see anything past 5 feet. And then I heard the whistle again. This time it was closer, maybe 30 yards out. Still that same long high note. I held my breath and listened. A few seconds later, it came from a different direction, off to my left, then again, behind me. It was moving, circling. I grabbed my headlamp and turned it on. The beam cut through the fog but didn't reach far, just a wall of white. "Kyle," I hissed. "Kyle, wake up." No answer. I unzipped his tent. He was still in his sleeping bag, face down, not moving. I shook his shoulder. "Kyle." He jerked awake, gasping like he'd been underwater. "What the hell?" he muttered. "Do you hear that?" He sat up, rubbing his eyes. We both listened. Nothing, just silence and fog. "Hear what?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just kept listening. Then it came again, that whistle, long and clear, right outside his tent. Kyle's face went pale. We sat there, frozen, staring at the tent wall. The whistle came again, closer now, so close it sounded like someone was standing inches away. Kyle grabbed his knife. I grabbed mine. We didn't speak. The whistling stopped. For a long time, nothing happened. Just the sound of our breathing, the fog pressing in. Then we heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, crunching through the frost. They circled Kyle's tent once, then mine, then stopped. We waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. Finally, Kyle whispered, "I'm going out there." "Don't," I said. He unzipped the tent anyway and stepped outside. I followed. The fog was even thicker now. We stood back to back, headlamps cutting weak beams through the white. Nothing moved, no sound, no shape. But then I saw it. A shadow, tall, thin, standing just at the edge of my light. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stood there. "Kyle," I whispered. He turned, saw it too. We both stared. The shadow didn't move. Then slowly it raised one arm and whistled, that same long, high note. We ran. I don't remember packing. I don't remember grabbing my gear. I just remember running down that trail in the dark, fog swallowing everything behind us. We didn't stop until we reached the truck. The rusted one was still there. Still hadn't moved. Kyle threw the packs in the bed and we drove. Didn't talk. Didn't look back. 2 days later, I called the ranger station. Asked if anyone else had been camping on that ridge. The ranger said no. Said the trail had been closed for trail maintenance since January. No one should have been up there. I asked about the truck. He paused. "What truck?" I described it. Old, rusted, parked at the trailhead off Forest Road 83. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We towed that truck out 3 years ago. Belonged to a hiker who never came back." I hung up. Kyle doesn't camp anymore. Neither do I. But sometimes late at night I hear it. That whistle, long and high, coming from somewhere I can't see. I took my dog Sully on a 3-day camping trip into the Cherokee National Forest. He was a mutt, part hound, part something else, smart, loyal. He'd been with me through 2 breakups and a cross-country move. I trusted him more than most people I knew. If you've got a dog and you're listening to this, leave a comment. Tell me their name. I picked a remote section near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. No designated campsites, no trail markers past the first 2 miles. Just open forest and a creek that ran clear and cold. Sully loved it. He spent the first hour running ahead, circling back, sniffing every tree and rock like he was cataloging the entire forest. We hiked until late afternoon, then set up camp in a small clearing surrounded by oaks. The ground was soft. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. It was perfect. I built a fire, cooked some rice and beans, and gave Sully half a can of wet food mixed with kibble. He ate fast, then curled up next to the fire and fell asleep. I stayed up a little longer, watching the flames and listening to the creek babble in the distance. Around 10, I crawled into my tent. Sully stayed outside by the fire. He always did that, preferred the open air. I fell asleep fast. I woke up to growling, low, steady, the kind of growl Sully only made when something was seriously wrong. I sat up and unzipped the tent. He was standing at the edge of camp, hackles raised, staring into the trees. "Sully," I whispered, "what is it?" He didn't look at me, didn't move, just kept staring. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The fire had burned down to embers. The forest was dark, silent. I shined the light where Sully was looking. Nothing, just trees and shadows. "Come on, boy," I said. "It's nothing." He growled again, louder this time. Then he barked, sharp, aggressive. I'd never heard him bark like that before. It made my stomach tighten. I walked over and put my hand on his head. He was trembling. "Easy," I said. Easy. He stopped barking, but he didn't stop staring. I stood there with him for a few minutes, scanning the trees with my light. Still nothing. Finally, I convinced him to come back to the tent. He followed reluctantly, glancing over his shoulder every few steps. I zipped us both inside and lay down. Sully curled up next to me, tense and alert. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Neither did he. The next morning I found tracks. They were just outside the camp, in the dirt near where Sully had been standing. At first I thought they were bear tracks, large, 5 toes, claw marks. But the spacing was wrong, and the shape. They looked more like handprints, long fingers, deep impressions. I crouched down and studied them. They led from the trees, circled the camp once, then disappeared back into the forest. Sully sniffed them and whined. He backed away, ears flat. I took a photo on my phone. Then I packed up camp. I told myself I was just being cautious, that it was probably nothing. But deep down, I knew something was off. We hiked for most of the day, following the creek downstream. Sully stayed close, didn't run ahead like he usually did, just walked beside me, quiet and tense. By late afternoon, we reached a second clearing, smaller than the first, but it had a good view and plenty of firewood nearby. I set up camp again. This time, I kept Sully inside the tent with me. Night came fast. I made a fire and ate some trail mix. Sully refused to eat. He just lay at the edge of the tent, staring out into the dark. Around midnight, he started growling again. I grabbed my flashlight and looked outside. The fire was still going. Nothing moved. But then I heard it, a rustling sound, like something dragging through leaves. It came from the far side of the clearing, slow, deliberate. Sully's growl turned into a snarl. He was shaking. I shined my light toward the sound. The beam caught something. A shape, tall, hunched, moving between the trees. It stopped when the light hit it. Didn't run, didn't hide, just stopped. I held the light steady, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It looked almost human, but the proportions were wrong. The arms too long, the shoulders too narrow. And then it moved, not away, toward us. Sully lunged forward, barking and snarling. I grabbed his collar and pulled him back. The shape stopped again, closer now, maybe 20 yards out. I could see its head, tilted, like it was watching us, studying us. I didn't move, didn't breathe. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it turned and walked back into the trees, slow, unhurried. I waited until I couldn't hear it anymore. Then I dragged Sully into the tent and zipped it shut. We left at first light. Didn't pack properly, didn't eat. Just grabbed what we could and hiked out. Sully stayed pressed against my leg the entire time. He kept looking back, ears pinned. We made it to the car by noon. I threw everything in the trunk and drove straight home. That night, Sully wouldn't go outside, not even to pee. He just stood at the back door, whining. It took him 3 weeks before he'd go into the yard again, and even then, he wouldn't go past the porch light. I still have the photo of those tracks. I've shown it to a few people, a park ranger, a wildlife biologist, a friend who hunts. None of them could tell me what made them. Sully's older now, slower, but sometimes, late at night, he'll stop and stare at the window. Hackles raised, growling at something I can't see. And I wonder if whatever we saw in those woods followed us home. I decided to hike the Grandfather Mountain backcountry alone. My wife had just filed for divorce. I needed space, distance, something that felt bigger than what I was going through. If you're going through something right now and you're out there alone, comment below. You're not the only one. I started at the Moses Cone trailhead on a Saturday in late June. The weather was perfect, clear skies, mid-70s, just enough breeze to keep the bugs down. The plan was simple. Hike 8 miles in, camp for 2 nights, then hike back out. No schedule, no pressure, just me and the trail. The first day went smooth. I passed a few day hikers on the main path, but once I branched off onto the connector trail, I was alone. By evening, I reached a ridge with a flat clearing tucked under a stand of white pines. It was private, quiet, exactly what I needed. I set up my tent, a small 2-person dome in forest green, boiled water for dinner, made coffee, sat on a log and watched the sun sink behind the ridge. It was the first time in weeks I'd felt anything close to calm. I turned in around 9, no fire, didn't need one, just crawled into my sleeping bag and lay there listening to the wind move through the trees. I slept hard. When I woke up, the sun was already high. I checked my watch, almost 10. I unzipped the tent and stepped outside, and froze. There was another tent across the clearing. It hadn't been there the night before. I was sure of it. It was small, single person, bright orange, the kind you see at discount outdoor stores. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe someone hiked in early, while I was still asleep. But there was no sound, no movement, no gear outside, no fire ring, just the tent. I walked over slowly, stopped a few feet away. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I stepped closer. The zipper was open, just a few inches, enough to see inside. It was empty. No sleeping bag, no pack, no gear, just bare nylon. I backed away and looked around the clearing. No footprints, no trail leading in or out. It was like the tent had just appeared. I went back to my camp and made breakfast. Tried to ignore it. Told myself someone must have set it up and wandered off. Maybe they were scouting the area. Maybe they'd come back. But the whole time I ate, I kept glancing at it, sitting there, silent, empty. After I finished eating, I decided to hike for a few hours, get some distance, clear my head. I packed a day pack with water and snacks and headed north along the ridge. The trail was narrow but well-worn. I passed a stream, a few rock outcroppings, saw a hawk circling overhead. By early afternoon, I looped back to camp. The orange tent was gone. I stopped at the edge of the clearing and stared at the spot where it had been. No sign it was ever there. No flattened grass. No stake marks. Nothing. I walked over and crouched down, ran my hand over the ground. It was dry, undisturbed. I stood up and looked around, still alone. I told myself I'd imagined it, that maybe I'd seen a patch of light, a tarp someone left behind, something. But I knew what I'd seen. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my tent, eyes open, listening. Around midnight, I heard it. A zipper, slow, deliberate. The sound of a tent being opened. I sat up fast, held my breath. The sound came again, closer this time. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped my tent. The clearing was empty, but across from me, maybe 15 feet away, was the orange tent. It was back. And this time, the zipper was moving. I watched, frozen, as it slid down inch by inch. The flap opened. Nothing came out. I shined my flashlight at it. The beam lit up the inside. Empty. Just like before. But then I saw something. A shadow. On the back wall of the tent, like someone was crouched inside, pressed against the fabric. The shadow didn't move. I stood there, light shaking in my hand, staring at it. Then the shadow shifted, slowly, like it was turning to face me. I backed into my tent and zipped it shut, fast, hands trembling. I didn't sleep, didn't move, just sat there in the dark, listening. At some point, I heard footsteps, soft, circling my tent. They stopped right outside the door. I held my breath. A hand pressed against the fabric. I could see the outline, fingers spread wide. It stayed there for what felt like minutes. Then it pulled away. The footsteps moved off, faded into the distance. I waited until dawn. Then I packed everything as fast as I could and hiked out. I didn't look back, didn't stop, just walked. When I reached the trailhead, there were 2 other cars in the lot, both empty. I sat in mine for a long time, engine running, heat blasting even though it was June. I called the ranger station later that day, asked if anyone else had been camping on that ridge. The ranger checked the permits, said no one had reserved that area for the past 2 weeks. I asked if anyone had reported anything strange up there. She paused. Then she said, "What kind of strange?" I didn't answer, just thanked her and hung up. I haven't been back to Grandfather Mountain since, probably never will. But sometimes when I'm falling asleep, I see it. That orange tent, sitting there in the dark, waiting. Rachel asked me to join her on a girls' camping trip in the Nantahala National Forest. It was just the 2 of us. No guys, no distractions, just a weekend to disconnect and breathe. If you're a woman who camps alone or with friends, drop a comment. I want to hear your stories. Rachel had done this trail before, said it was easy, scenic, safe. We started early on a Friday morning in September. The leaves were just starting to turn. The air smelled like wood smoke and rain. The trailhead was busy. Families, couples, a group of college kids with oversized packs and too much energy. We hiked past all of them. By mid-afternoon, we were alone. The trail had narrowed. The trees pressed in close. It was quiet in that heavy, watchful way. Rachel led. I followed. We didn't talk much, just walked. Around 4, we reached a campsite near a bend in the river. It was marked on the map. A small clearing with a metal fire ring and a weathered picnic table. We dropped our packs and set up the tent. Rachel gathered wood. I filtered water from the river. Dinner was pasta with dehydrated marinara. We ate sitting on the table, legs dangling, watching the light fade. Rachel told a story about her ex-boyfriend. I told one about my boss. We laughed. It felt good. By 9, we were in the tent. Rachel fell asleep fast. I stayed awake, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Around 11, I heard something. A voice, faint, distant, like someone calling from across the river. I sat up and listened. It came again, closer this time. A woman's voice, singing. No words, just a melody, soft and slow. I unzipped the tent and looked outside. The fire had died. The clearing was dark. The singing stopped. I zipped the tent back up and lay down. Told myself it was another camper, someone farther up the trail. But it didn't feel right. I woke up to Rachel shaking my shoulder. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" "Someone said my name." I stared at her. She was pale, wide-eyed. "What do you mean?" "I heard someone outside the tent. They said Rachel, clear as day." I grabbed my flashlight and opened the tent, shined the light around the clearing. Nothing. We both sat there listening. Then I heard it. Rachel. My blood went cold. It was a woman's voice, calm, almost friendly. It came from the trees, just beyond the light. Rachel grabbed my arm. "Who is that?" I didn't answer. I just kept the light steady, scanning the tree line. "Rachel," the voice said again. "Come here." Rachel's grip tightened. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. We waited. 1 minute, 2. Then the voice spoke again, but this time it said my name. "Emma?" I felt my stomach drop. Rachel looked at me. "How does it know your name?" I shook my head. "I don't know." The voice came again, closer now. "Emma, come here." I turned off the flashlight. We sat in the dark, barely breathing. The voice kept calling, over and over. "Rachel, Emma, come here." It moved around the clearing, circling, never stopping. Rachel started crying, quiet, shaking. I held her hand and didn't let go. The voice called until dawn, then it stopped. We packed at first light, didn't eat, didn't speak, just grabbed our gear and hiked out. We didn't stop until we reached the car. Rachel drove. I sat in the passenger seat staring at my hands. We didn't talk about it. Not on the drive home, not ever. But a week later, Rachel called me. She said she'd been hearing it again, the voice, at night, outside her apartment, calling her name. I told her I hadn't heard anything, but I was lying, because I'd heard it too. In my bedroom, in the shower, in the parking lot at work, always the same. "Emma, come here." I moved 6 months later, changed my phone number, stopped camping. Rachel moved too. We don't talk anymore. I think she blames me, or maybe she's just scared. I still hear it sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet. That voice, soft, calm, calling my name. And I wonder what would have happened if we'd gone to it, if we'd walked into those trees. I think I'm glad I never found out.